Welcome to the State Bar of Texas podcast, your monthly source for conversations and curated content to improve your law practice. With your host, Rocky Deer.
Hello and welcome to the State Bar of Texas podcast. I am Rocky Deer, your host. I'm here in Houston. Why am I in Houston? Because there's something big going on in Houston. It's the 2018 State Bar of Texas annual meeting, and I've got a very, very good friend of mine sitting across from me. He's, for some reason, I can never get him to stop writing books, this guy. His name is John Browning. John, how are you?
Doing great, Rocky.
Many of you may have heard of John, or you may have heard him speak, or you may have read his books. You've been writing about almost everything under the sun. Do you have like a murder mystery thriller yet?
Not yet, because my wife would like me to write a John Grisham-like courtroom thriller. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm that creative. I think I'm going to have to do something that makes more money one of these days.
You could take a Grisham book and maybe just put like some duct tape over his name and put yours in with like a Sharpie.
Or do like a color by numbers thing and just change some names.
You could be a children's author. How about that?
Well, my first children's book didn't do very well, Rocky, for reasons that may be obvious by the title. It's called Daddy Drinks Because You Cry, and just didn't really succeed. I also tried
truth hurts sometimes. The truth hurts to kids.
And I tried a children's book on federal jurisdiction called, it was really kind of a Dr. Seuss style, called There's a Penoyer in My Foyer. But, apparently federal jurisdiction's not a big issue with the pre-K set.
They should make a Christmas movie out of that, though. Penoyer in the Foyer.
Well, I still have the movie rights. And, unfortunately, all the rights.
Nobody's asked you for them yet?
No.
No?
No.
Well, maybe somebody will hear this.
Ah, that could be my ticket to stardom.
Yes. Steven Spielberg, are you listening to this? Hey, Spielberg, listen. You got to get this guy, make Penoyer in the Foyer into an actual movie. You can change it around entirely and make it more like Star Wars-esque, but just keep the title.
Exactly.
That's all we care about.
Yeah.
Substance doesn't matter anymore.
You don't need much CGI with federal jurisdiction.
No, you don't. You might need a few thoughts and prayers, but that's about all. So, John, you're speaking here at our annual meeting. You've got a couple of topics, but the one I thought was really interesting is about social media and ethics.
Yes.
So, is this I think we've heard the talks before about how you use social media to try to cross-examine a witness. Is it that kind of thing?
Well, actually, it's a little bit more of some cautionary tales for lawyers, and it's an outgrowth of my most recent book, Legal Ethics in Social Media, a practitioner's handbook, which came out last June from the ABA Press. And really what it is a guide for lawyers on avoiding the kind of pitfalls from an ethical standpoint that they can get into when using social media.
It sounds like a movie on the Lifetime Network.
It probably could be.
Yeah.
Like Unfriended or something like that.
There we go. Yes. And it could be about three people and the unfriending. And we're just all kinds of creativity today.
Yeah, exactly.
So what in your research have lawyers kind of been tripping up on when it comes to social media and their use of that?
Well, pretty much every single way lawyers can use social media in their practice provides an avenue for misuse. And
that's comforting.
Yeah, unfortunately. And lawyers just need to be aware of the fact that the same ethical rules are going to apply to these somewhat less traditional modes of communication. In other words, if it's something that you wouldn't, say in a bar association speech or, publish in a pleading, you should probably not tweet it or post it on Facebook. And lawyers have run into ethical issues even when they're not using it in kind of a more direct way, like investigating a case or a witness, in just publicizing an ongoing case, for example. There was a lawyer, two lawyers actually, trying a big pharmaceutical case against the makers of Xarelto.
Okay.
Now, Xarelto is made by a German-based company, Bayer, and these lawyers were on Instagram during the trial using the hashtag Killin' Nazis. Oh. Now, this was a reference to both the Quentin Tarantino movie, Inglourious Bastards,
sure.
But they were deliberately showing pictures of the courtroom, Instagramming photos of the courtroom with that hashtag, supposedly in an effort to, as the defense claimed, link, the Nazi atrocities with the German manufacturer, and it was assailed by the defense attorneys as a xenophobic strategy. And among other reasons, this was one of several things cited when the judge later threw out a $27.8 million trial verdict. And he later disciplined the two attorneys. In the case of one, fined her and also sentenced her to do a pro bono and CLE. And with another attorney, he revoked the pro hac vice admission of that out-of-state attorney to practice in that court. And that was in Philadelphia.
So I guess the first thing goes through my head, I'll be honest with you, is it's not so much the ethical issues and what the ethical violations were. It's more, this is something I wouldn't write even if there was no ethical rule.
It's poor judgment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like somehow in their heads, they thought it's okay to take their German base and equate that to Nazism. I mean, have you gotten any insight into what's going through people's minds when they're posting these social media?
Well, the law firm of one of the attorneys involved was actually actively using that hashtag and those Instagram posts in promoting their firm. They were using it as part of their firm's promotional strategy, which the judge called a terrible reflection on our profession. But, you know,
it's an understatement.
Yeah, and lawyers struggle just to, keep with the whole Instagram as an example. Lawyers struggle with other aspects, other ethical duties, such as candor, the duty of candor to the tribunal. One lawyer in New York was involved with a case, and this was a labor and employment case, had missed a deadline on filing a particular pleading, and later sought an extension, and as grounds for seeking the extension, had said, hey, I've been out of the country caring for a sick mother. Well, unfortunately for this lawyer...
I think we see where this is going.
Yep. Opposing counsel both owned a calendar and was social media savvy, and he looked at the Instagram posts of that lawyer. And at the same time that she supposedly was away caring for the sick mother, her Instagram account showed her having fun visiting art galleries, going to bars in Miami, having Thanksgiving dinner in another city, anywhere but where she claimed that she was supposed to be. The lawyers, the defense attorneys, confronted the court with this revelation. Judge was not amused, sanctioned that attorney, not only denied the request for the extension, but sanctioned that attorney $10,000. So a pretty expensive lesson to learn about using Instagram and duty of candor to the court.
You would think lawyers would know better, though, right? I mean, you'd think they would figure that you've got an opposing counsel who, chances are, will notice this.
You would think. But I think that for a lot of lawyers, there seems to be this misplaced sense of security and anonymity in using the internet. And it really should be anything but. It's a little like a 2-year-old throwing a blanket over his head and saying, I'm invisible. Well, you can't see us, but we can see you.
I still do that, John. I mean, there's no need to cast aspersions. I mean, I'm the host of the show, and here we are. You're telling me that doesn't work. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
A little sensitivity.
And there's no Santa Claus.
For all you kids listening, don't listen to this man. He is the Panoyer and the Foyer.
I am.
Yes.
I am.
So let's talk for a second then about this dichotomy, because on the one hand, we hear that social media can be a great tool. Lawyers need to embrace it when they're branding themselves and telling their stories. But then on the other hand, we see lawyers telling their stories and then getting slapped on the wrist or thumped on the head. How do you sort of traverse those two worlds?
Yeah, it is kind of a dichotomy there. And lawyers tell me, particularly after seeing a CLE that I've given or after reading an article I've written, say, you know what, I'm just going to stay away from social media. But there's a problem with that because we have a duty. And in fact, the state of Texas recently, the board approved a resolution that was promulgated by, among other groups, the Computer and Technology section of the State Bar, about adopting what 31 other states already had, and that is a revised version of one of the rules of professional conduct involving a duty of competency that includes a duty to be conversant in both the benefits and risks of technology. So no more caveman lawyer, no more Luddite lawyer. And so for lawyers to just stick their head in the sand and say, you know what, best way to avoid this sort of ethical quandary is just to not use or be involved with social media. I think that's throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You really do have a responsibility from a competence standpoint to be conversant in this, but we also, part of that competence involves being aware of the fact that there are ethical risks posed by certain types of misuse.
But then if I'm a lawyer and I decide I don't want to have a LinkedIn profile or a Twitter handle, I don't want to be on Facebook or on Instagram. I want to issue all of that. Maybe have email because that seems to be all the rage these days, right?
All the cool kids are doing it.
It's the newest thing. And there's even these phones that fit in your pocket. It's crazy. All these doohickeys. But if I'm a lawyer and I decide I don't want to have a social media presence, are you saying that now the state bar rules are effectively saying I have to have a social media presence?
Well, they're not requiring a social media presence per se, but they will be requiring, as 31 other states and the ABA has required, to have some sense of being conversant in the benefits and risks of technology. Now, this can encompass a whole host of things,
Sure.
besides being aware of the fact that, hey, there's a lot of valuable information that can benefit your client or pose certain risks for your client when it comes to social media. In a number of states where they already have addressed in the form of ethics opinions attorneys' use of social media, they've said that this really is a part of being competent in one's representation of one's clients. Being aware so that you can advise your client, hey, if you post this, that's going to hurt our case. Or being aware of the fact that the other side may have some things that are damaging to their case that they've posted. So being aware of it and the use of it is really something attorneys should be aware of. Whether or not they have their own social media presence, that's up to them. That's their choice. Personally, I think they're missing out because obviously, I've seen the benefits of being on Facebook, being on Twitter, from a attorney promotional standpoint as well as from a professional use standpoint.
So then, because you are on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn and so on and so forth, how do you make that determination as to what's okay to post, what is safe to post versus where are you carrying some risk? Because, look, theoretically, anything you post could boomerang on you, even if you're being completely good faith about it, right?
Sure.
So,
I'll tell you, Rocky, I've walked into a mediation one time and had something that I had posted. Actually, it was sharing an article I had written that the other lawyer felt helped his case, helped underscore certain legal points that he was trying to make. Of course, in that instance, he probably didn't read my whole article because, I actually think it helped my case. But these things are going to happen. So you have to be aware of it, but I think that's just part of the price you pay. That's part and parcel of, having a social media presence and being social media savvy.
Well, the example you gave would be probably akin to giving a CLE talk and providing materials in that CLE talk. And somebody says, well, I heard your talk and you said X and now you're saying Y.
Sure.
So you actually support my case, Mr. Browning, right?
I've actually had, I've walked into a hearing where in an employment dispute, a non-compete, the opposing attorney was trying to cite a certain resource in support of his argument. What he didn't realize was he didn't take a look at who the author was. And I happened to write the chapter on non-competes for that particular legal treatise on Texas employment law. The judge knew this. I knew this. Opposing counsel didn't know this even while he was attempting to cite it. And the judge himself chuckled and said, you might want to read the rest of what Mr. Browning wrote. And then he ruled for me. So
that sounds like you just made that story up, I get the feeling.
I wish.
Yeah.
Stranger than fiction.
I don't think you could have written that. But maybe you could write that in your upcoming thriller novel for the kids.
There you go.
Your upcoming children's thriller novel. So now let's talk for a second. You've been writing for a number of years now about social media.
Sure. Yeah. Book number 4. And
you're just out to make me look bad.
35 law review articles.
Okay, keep going.
Hundreds of others, yeah.
Keep going. This is, anything else? Did you win a Pulitzer?
I got nominated.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. What, for which article?
Actually, I wrote a syndicated newspaper column called Legally Speaking for a number of years, ran in papers throughout Texas. And I
remember that, yes.
I wrote a series of articles about the enduring legacy of racial violence, past racial violence like lynchings, on small Texas communities.
Wow.
And that series of articles, which talked about, various ones, some not very well known, but which had lingering effects, was selected, or, the series was nominated back in, I think it was 2007, for the Pulitzer in local reporting. I didn't win. I think I was one of about 148 people nominated who did not win, was not a finalist.
Are you a little bitter?
No, believe me, for that, it was kind of like the honor is getting the nomination.
Did you get to walk on a red carpet?
Not for that, but for other ones. I mean, I've won a number of writing awards, so that's very nice.
When you walk on the red carpet, do you wear a certain designer? Do you say I'm wearing Oscar de la Renta?
Who are you wearing?
Exactly.
Yeah, no. Although, when I won the Burton Award, one of the years that I won that in Washington, D.C., they presented the Library of Congress. Usually a U.S. Supreme Court justice, presents the award. I attended and got to walk on the red carpet. It's a black tie event. And the actress, Jane Krakowski, from 30 Rock.
Sure.
Yeah. She was there because the guy behind Ally McBeal and Boston Legal and those shows was being honored as well for legal writing for television. And she was there, and she needed someone to escort her on the red carpet. I happened to walk out, there all by my lonesome, wearing my Texas flag motif tie and cummerbund set and my full quill ostrich boots. And I guess I looked very Texas-y. So Jane Krakowski said, "Give me your arm." So that was kind of nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got to escort an actress.
I did.
On the red carpet.
I did. Of course, as soon as that was done, I think she distance herself from me as far as possible, which is entirely understandable.
You still understand, though, how all of these events, it kind of makes your life sound a little Forrest Gumpish. It's like everything just kind of cool happens to you.
It was at that ceremony that Chief Justice Roberts paid me what I'm pretty sure was a compliment. He knew what I'd apparently won the award for, and he said, "I guess you don't write like a lawyer." And
That's a compliment.
I said, "No, Mr. Chief Justice, I guess I don't." And he said, "I mean that as a compliment." And I said, I take it that way.
That is a very good compliment.
Yeah.
Are you the owner of the Bubba Grump Shrimping Company?
No.
Because that would be the only thing you'd need to complete the story to make this a truly epic
I guess
story.
I have to say that in my Forrest Gump voice, like, "I'm not a bright man."
We can have all kinds of shrimp. I can be Bubba, you can be Forrest.
There we go.
That could be a future podcast.
Shrimp and rice, boiled shrimp.
That's right.
Yeah.
All we need is a third person to be Lieutenant Dan, and
That's
we'll need
right.
a Jenny.
There you go.
We can recruit and bring some people in.
We'd be like peas and carrots.
So here's something I want to maybe talk about on a future podcast. Maybe we can talk about this someday. And maybe you can, I don't know if you've looked into this at all. Artificial intelligence. Everybody's talking about that in the law these days.
Are the robots coming to steal our jobs?
Right, that's
Yeah.
part of it. And then can the robots enhance our jobs? Have you thought anything about that?
I have. As a matter of fact, two things. Today, I'll be speaking as part of a panel on artificial intelligence and how it's impacting the legal profession.
Okay.
How it's impacting things like legal research, contract analytics, things like that. Last year, I was part of a symposium at Texas A&M Law School, one of the first symposia in the country about AI and its impact on the law. And I've got a forthcoming law review article on that. And I've actually started working on an article for a journal on robotics, artificial intelligence in the law, on the civil and criminal liability issues and questions posed by what happens when things go wrong, like when a robot in an auto factory, for example, kills someone. Mm-hmm. What happens when a driverless car runs someone over? These are issues that the law is going to have to grapple with, and what sort of theories are pursued? Is it a product liability theory? Is it a vicarious liability theory against the employer? These are all things that are very much part of a still evolving landscape in the law.
Would you be willing to come back and talk to us about that?
I'd love to, Rocky.
Those sound like some interesting topics.
Hey, anytime I can, in my 50s, channel my inner 9-year-old and write about killer robots, I'm happy to do that.
I think you've been working your whole life for this moment.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. That's it's all been leading up to this.
Exactly.
Well, John, it's always a pleasure to have you. We always have a lot of fun together, and our follow-up on AI is going to be epic.
I hope so. I look forward to it.
And we do need to give some serious thought to this Forrest Gump-themed session. We see how we can make this work.
I've had some pretty amazing things happen, and I'm still a little mystified by some of it.
All kidding aside, you've earned it. You're a fantastic lawyer, and it's been a pleasure having you here. And thank you for listening. By the way, John is a great guy. If you want to reach out to John, you want to learn a little bit more about what he does, John, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Well, my law firm website, Passman and Jones.
Okay.
So www.passmanjones.com. And my email address, browningj@passmanjones.com.
And you'd welcome people reaching out with questions?
Absolutely.
Or
I
wanting to
get
reach
questions
out?
all the time from lawyers all over the country.
And you're traveling all
And
the time.
judges.
You're traveling all the time. You could probably go meet people if you're in their city or something. They'd probably want to.
Well, I don't know.
There's a celebrity factor there.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen too much. But I already travel too much.
Paparazzi, do they follow you around?
No.
Maybe they will after this.
I look in a mirror every day, Rocky. So you know.
I've got a face for podcasting, let's just say. So again, John, thank you for being with us.
It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure to have you here. And thank you for listening to the State Bar of Texas podcast in partnership with Legal Talk Network. If you liked what you heard today, please find us and rate us on Apple Podcasts, on Google Play, or on your favorite podcast app. And guys, thank you for joining us. After all, life's a journey. Tune in.
If you'd like more information about today's show, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com. Go to TexasBar.com/podcast, subscribe via Apple Podcasts and RSS. Find both the State Bar of Texas and Legal Talk Network on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, or download the free app from Legal Talk Network in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, the State Bar of Texas, Legal Talk Network, or their respective officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, or subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.